Hello, YouTube land. This is Brenton coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky, the Bluegrass State. If anyone out there would like to share a story here on this show, you can contact me at brentonsawin@gmail.com if you want to contribute to help with this show, which is very much needed through this next few months until things pick back up from some of the things that YouTube had struggled with, advertising on ISIS videos and what have you. But anyway, I have the PayPal me account that's in the description. You can click on, or you can go to a Patreon account and help out. But we have something I think quite extraordinary today, and we got other stuff that's going to be pretty interesting. Man, I really have been very fortunate to get some very interesting stuff. So I have a really interesting Dogman thing coming up soon. But today is a more of a Bigfoot and something else type of story, and this sounded just extremely interesting to me. So I think that you all might like this. This fellow's name is Matt, and it's a story from Western Kentucky, and we're just going to go to him and let him kind of give the background and kind of lead us up to this story, and however long it goes, it might end up being two-parter or whatever. We'll just see what happens. But anyway, hello, Matt. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you, Brett?
I'm doing wonderful, man. I really appreciate you reaching out and on Facebook and stuff. And it sounds like you've got something very traumatic that happened, and it took a little bit to even process it enough to even speak about it. So I would like you just to kind of give whatever kind of introduction you want to your, for yourself, tell something about you, and then just kind of start at the beginning on however this evolved into you noticing what was going on and it turning into whatever it turned into. So you got the floor.
Okay, well, it started basically, I moved out to this property in Western Kentucky in 1999. I moved out there, and it was around '06 or '07 is when I first realized something was going on with in the fact that we have a 12-acre plot there, little farm area, and there's a big cornfield that separates our plot of acreage right there, and on the other side is a big creek type area. Right behind, it's in my back door, basically, maybe 50 yards from my back door. And when they plant that corn, you can't even see my house. I mean, it's just, you can't see it really from the road. I've got trees that block it. And well, first I'd noticed, then this was when my daughter was young now. She was maybe 8 years old. And we had this slapping on the side of the house. And a lot of times it wasn't just 2 or 3 slaps, it was like 7 or 8. And being where I live at, we all have guns and, spotlights, all that. I'm a big avid fisherman and hunter, and I would immediately grab my gun and go out and look, and I never saw anything. And this happened several times. Well, I never paid it much mind, really, to be honest with you, at the time. And then it was years later, around 2010, I was down in that creek right behind my house, and I found these large footprints, which were around 16 inches long. I've got a pretty good sized foot. I wear a 13, and I had my hunting boots on at the time, and I could stick my whole boot in the print, and I mean, it was just enormous. It was, what struck me most was the width about the print, and it had the toes, everything, all 5 toes, and then it was the right footprint I noticed first, and I was looking for the second print, and I couldn't find it. And I kept looking for another print, and I wasn't looking far enough. It was way, I couldn't believe the stride distance from that print was, I'm going to say it was 50 inches at least, you know. It was a very long stride. I don't know if this thing was run or what, but I tried to recreate the stride. There's no possible way I could have done it, but that's when it caught my attention that something was going on, you know. And I had witnessed this, my brother, he was there. I showed him the prints, and of course he didn't believe in any of that. I didn't either at the time until what has recently happened, and I'll tell you about that here. I'm pretty nervous about it. To be honest with you, it's
maybe you should start with, you started noticing these footprints. So that was like the first time you started noticing something. Did you think that was Bigfoot, or what did you think it was?
Well, I didn't know. I really didn't know what it was. All I know is what I saw. It was a bare footprint, and in the right footprint you could see all the toes really good. And I measured them, and they were right around 16 inches. In the left footprint, I measured it, and it was the same exact length, but you couldn't see the toes really that good. It was in a gravel. The right footprint was in more of like a clay type of on the creek bank there. Right. And the left footprint was more in the gravel, and you couldn't really see the toes that good, but I measured them. They were both the same width, same length, everything, you know.
Right. So how did it escalate up to you finally knowing more than, hey, these are just footprints?
Okay. Well, I became kind of interested in the subject after I found, those footprints. I started kind of watching these shows and stuff, and it piqued my interest a little bit, and this really surprised me. It shocked me because this first place I went out in this area I'm at, it's a local game reserve, and there's a whole lot of activity out there, like as far as like horseback riding, and people will run their dogs out there. They've got there's tons of ponds and lakes and stuff, and what they do is they'll have those Labrador retrieving contests and stuff like that out there. And I never in a million years would have thought, anything like that would be out there with all the activity. But it's not a small place. It's about 6,000 acres of area. And when I first went out there, I started noticing tree structures right off the bat. I mean, everywhere. And that really piqued my interest just from watching things on YouTube, just seeing trees bent and whatnot and breaks, and they were everywhere. I couldn't believe it. I was like, how in the world why would they be right here? But that activity doesn't go on all year long, the horseback riding, all that stuff. There's times that nobody's out there. And so I dwelled a little deeper and went down to what's called, it's down in the bottoms here in Kentucky, at the bottom real, right along the Ohio River. And there's at least 20 big lakes out there, and that's when I took a photo of one of these creatures, what I believe that it is, and from then on, it wasn't up until June the 28th is when this happened to me, and it was in my backyard. I started going down the creek, and I found all these footprints just here this year, and all big giant footprints. And that's when I feel like I might have screwed up a little bit. By me saying this, it sounds crazy, but I started going out there and talking to them. I heard, oh, you can talk to them and this and that. And no, and I started talking to them. And it wasn't long, and they were right up close to my house, and they were in my backyard. My backyard, if I look out off my back porch, 50 yards from my back porch is a creek. And on both sides of that creek is a wood line. There's woods and there's blackberries. It's a real thick, bushy type area. And I started noticing them as I was talking to them now. I started noticing it looked like what you would see on TV, like if you ever saw a gorilla moving in a bush. It looked like you could see the bushes moving and shaking even. I mean, they would even shake them. I know it sounds crazy as hell, but this is real, and it's unreal. But they were moving around in those bushes like gorillas. And the first day I actually saw them was around the 25th of June. And the next 2 or 3 days there is when I actually got to see one. I mean, and he stuck his whole head out of the bush and shook it left into the right, and then he kind of held it up, and I could see his face. His head, he was black all over. He had hair about 3.5 inches long off the top of his head, shiny black hair, and his face, his cheeks. When he stuck his head out and shook it, and then he held his head up, I could see his cheeks, and his cheeks were solid black, and the sun was shining on his face, and his cheeks were reflecting the sun. He had real high cheekbones, and the sun was reflecting off his black face. And that's the only time I've ever seen one clearly. I've seen them. You can see them back there in the shadows. I mean, it's unreal. It's unreal. And I mean, it's hard for me to tell this story, but
well, just take your time and tell it. So basically, they started after you started talking to them. They started kind of revealing themselves a little more.
They exactly. That's exactly right, Brenton. I first went out, and I had my phone. I got a videotape. See, what happened is I took a ton of pictures and video, and I deleted all this stuff after, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks after this happened, because I was told to, and we'll get into that. I'll tell you why. But I felt like it was evil. I felt something was ominous about it, and that's why I deleted them. But I have retrieved some of the pictures here, and I've got some pictures, I can send you, but, and I might be able to retrieve that video. I was just so scared at the time. You got to understand, it was like, it didn't hit me till like 2 or 3 weeks later. I really got really scared thinking about, these things are not what I thought they were. In other words, I thought they were just another creature like an ape, or you know what I mean. I wasn't sure, but there's something more to these things than meets the eye, and that goes to what I'm getting ready to tell you about the what happened that night. And
before you get started, Matt, look.
Okay.
I know when I've had a couple encounters with them, and And here recently, I had one feeling my shoulder through the tent because my shoulder was like bulging the side of the tent out, and it reached in. It reached into the tent and actually, because I had it unzipped because I was letting the air in. It was just so hot, because it was just like a couple weeks ago. It was blistering hot, and the thing reached in and was grabbing my shoulder and kind of feeling my shoulder. And I don't know if it was toying with me. It's the unknown part that makes you not know. I don't know if I want to camp there no more. So I get what you're saying. Yeah. So you go ahead with your story, man. I just kind of wanted to throw that in there.
No. That's what I think. I think they like to play a lot of games, and especially the younger ones. And there's quite a few of those in this area right behind my house. I mean, I'll send you some photos. I've got small prints inside of big prints, you know what I mean, where they stepped into their mother or father's print or whatever. But anyway, June 28th, it was around 8 o'clock at night. I walked out on my back porch, and I know that right here. Let me just back up just a few minutes before that. I was playing my guitar with my. I've got a sliding glass door on my back porch there, and I had it open, and I was playing my guitar, and I noticed them. I could see them out there. They came out. They were standing out in the right amongst the tree line, listening. And it wasn't 15 minutes later, I had, this one's hard. I had these small looking, they didn't look like a baby or a juvenile of what you would think what a Bigfoot would look. They looked like a full grown, hairy, I don't know what. But the main one I saw, the first one I saw, he wasn't black like the other ones I saw. He was more of a brownish color, but he had right through the center of his scalp of his head, it was blonde, not blonde, but light brown. I mean, it was obvious it was a totally different color. It was a lighter color shade. And it looked like what you'd see, it looked like a mohawk almost. And this thing wasn't, I'm going to say it wasn't more than 3.5 feet tall. And then I saw two. I saw one more, and it had real long hair. I'm talking, it wasn't any taller either. It was the same height. It had real long hair, like oh shit, man, I don't know, a foot long maybe on it. It was really long hair. And this other thing I saw, this is the hardest one for me to even tell you about. It almost looked like it was transparent, like you could almost see through it.
Wow.
Well,
that's very interesting. There was this one guy, I can't remember his name, but he said that he ran across these small creatures like that had he said it's like this portal thing opened up, and I'm not saying, I'm not saying that's what happened in your case, but the things had red eyes and it was running after him, had sharp teeth and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, there's a lot of bizarre activity sometimes that goes through, but did you feel like these creatures were, these small ones were full grown, or?
Yeah, I felt like they were full grown, and I felt like, it felt ominous to me. I felt like they were a threat, and they were right. I mean, they weren't 15, 20 feet off my back porch, and I made the mistake of I went in there and I got my gun, my .45 pistol, Colt automatic. And I went out back there and I shot I shot towards them. I wasn't trying to hit any of them. I just shot towards them, because I felt threatened almost, like it was, I don't know, I just felt an evil presence from these, and I shot towards them, and then I immediately went inside, shut my doors, locked them, blocked all my doors, and that's when it all began. It was probably 15 minutes after I did that, I started seeing lights outside my house, and I'm getting ahead of myself here a little bit. I had left my phone out on my back deck on voice record because I was trying to record some noises just right before all this happened. I left it out there, and then when I came in, I locked the doors, and that one I was telling you about, the one that looked like I could see through it, the transparent looking thing, it was out on my back deck, and this is no shit. When he would step close to my back sliding glass door, I've got those blinds that you close, slide close and turn them. You know the kind. They're like a folding blind to where they close. And when he'd step next to that glass door, those blinds would swing like he was putting off some kind of energy. They would swing outwards. And from then on,
so he was projecting some type of energy that would make what is inside flow. The blinds are inside, and he's through the glass, making them kind of move.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah, no wonder you felt like it was ominous, man.
Yeah. Well, oh yeah, no, oh yeah, and that's part of it, and what, I don't know what in the hell was flying around my house though. It was like I know this is a crazy sound what I'm telling you, but it was like a small pyramid shaped object and it had blue, it looked like a blue stones, or man, I don't even know what it was lit up, and it had blue looking stones all over it, and it had a couple of red ones in there, and this thing, it had me running around my house is what happened, and it zapped me with, I don't know what, but at first, it looked like a laser pointer coming through my window. Okay, just one of those little red dots. And I wasn't worried about it because it didn't hit me. But when it hit me right between my eyes the first time, or that's what it felt like. And I went to my knees, and it felt like my heart was. Have you ever been put to sleep for like surgery or getting teeth cut out or something? Well, that's exactly what it felt like, except I didn't ever go to sleep. And this happened over and over and over and over for the next 3 hours. It ran me. It knew exactly where I was in my house. I went in the closet. I've got a closed-in closet with no windows in it. And then from there, I could feel a low rumbling outside the outside wall of my house. It was like a real low, you couldn't hear it, but you could feel it. It was a real low rumbling, like you could feel it in your body. It was almost like whatever this is toying with me, and I was certain, I knew that night I was going to die. I knew I was going to die that night. and it was horrifying. I felt like a rat in a cage. I mean, it was running me around, and it everywhere I went, it knew. Man, it was. This sounds crazy, but I've got these cabinets in my kitchen. They've got like mirror on part of them, like mirror tint. This thing was bouncing whatever it was shooting in there through my window and bouncing it off and hitting me with it. I have no idea. I mean, I thought Sasquatch was. I don't know what this was. It was something else other than the Bigfoot. To make a long story short, I ended up going into one of my bedrooms and just waiting. I took an old bed I had that was not put up, and I laid behind the bed and the box springs, and I don't know. I was just waiting because I'd seen it pass that window, and when I thought it was there, I had a shotgun and a 45 on me, and the shotgun I took and I blew my window out, and I ran in my underwear, grabbed my keys, ran to my truck, got in it, and I was heading towards town. And I didn't even make it maybe a mile down the road, and something was in the air following me, and it had two bright lights on top, square lights. Now, this is what's weird to me, more weird than anything. It had two square lights on top and three square lights on the bottom, and it was on me. It was up in the air, following my truck, and there was nowhere I could go. There's no way I'd have made it to town. It was 12 o'clock at night by then. There's no way I could have made it 10 miles to town. It was already approaching me real quick. So I had a friend of mine that lived approximately 2 miles from where I was at, so I was halfway there. I pulled in his driveway. I ran out. I had a shotgun and a 45, and I was in my underwear, and I'm beating on his back door. He's got a family and kids, man, and I was so scared, dude. That's how scared I was. I was so scared, and he would never come to the door. So I ended up, and the craft landed across the field from him. It was plain as day. I could see it. It was sitting right there. His lights were still on. I was hiding in the back corner of his house next to his outside air condensing unit there, in between it, with just waiting, because I thought they're going to come at me on foot, whatever this is, and well, long story short, he ended up calling the cops. He didn't know who it was out there. I did announce my name several times, but he was in bed, man. I don't blame him at all, He called the cops. They end up showing up, and when they get there, by that point, I'm behind his house in a pole barn with my shotgun ready, because I'm thinking that thing's going to come any minute to get me. It's coming. Well, I didn't know a detective, and he never, ever said out loudly, "Sheriff's Department," ever, or I wouldn't have that gun up. Well, he came back there, and I had the gun up, and of course, you know how that went. And as soon as he says Sheriff's Department, I threw the gun down and dove on the ground, and they took me to the hospital after, I told him what happened and everything, and they would never look in that field. I tried to get them. Look, it's right over there. By that point, I was just a crazy person. And I tried to get him to look over there. Okay. Well, here's where it gets interesting, as if it hadn't already. But I get in the back of the cop car. The officer is a young gentleman that is taking me to the hospital, and I'm telling him, I say, look, I said, if you just look over there, I said, man, please look over there. I said, it's right there. And I don't know that he ever looked right then, but all I know is once we got on the road, I kept on telling him, go fast, go fast. I overheard him once we got back to the hospital tell the other cop, yeah, I was doing 160, and he was flying. I felt the wheels leave the ground, and I looked up. I saw the object, and I on our way to the hospital, I said, hey man, I said, hey buddy, you're going to tell him what you're seeing, aren't you? I said, you're going to tell him, right? And he didn't say anything at first. I think he was in shock. I said, hey man, you're going to tell him, because this thing was on our ass. I said, you're going to tell him what you saw, right? He goes, yeah man, I'm going to tell him. Of course, we get back there, and another cop comes in there, and I said, hey partner, I said, hey, how about you tell him what you saw? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, you know what I mean? He goes, I don't know. And then he played it off like he didn't see anything, and that really upset me, man, because he saw it, and he wouldn't have been flying like he was, you know what I mean? I heard him tell the other cop. He said, man, I was doing 160 to get here. Why on earth? And I wasn't even in the seatbelt. They laid me down. I was laying in the back seat, and I wasn't even going to look up because I was thinking this thing's going to zap me through the damn window, And I told it, well, what I'm getting at is why, he was flying. This dude was doing 160 miles an hour down a 2-lane road for part of it, and then we got on the highway, and he had it hammered. I mean, he was scared. He saw it just like I did. And then when I asked him, he goes, "Oh no!" He said, "You probably saw the headlight or the lights flashing on the top." I said, "No." I said, "You know what it was?" And then he walked out of the room, and that was that. I mean, basically, I know he saw it. He saw it, and man, I know it's crazy, man. But what I'm getting at is there's more to these things than just a Bigfoot. They're like connected. I think they're connected with. Well, I know they were there. They're connected with the UFOs. Is what I'm saying, and okay. I have no doubt about it.
So you think that he sees these things and what have you, because he's driving fast and what have you, and
I know he saw him. He was scared to death, man. We got back, he was shaking. He was,
you can understand why he might not want to wreck his career.
Well, of course, especially since I had a shotgun pointed at his mentor as an older officer, and that was like I think they were, riding together, or not riding together, but they were very close, and so of course I understand that, but now, yeah.
Now now a lot of people are going to wonder if you've ever had any kind of experiences like this before this.
No, I never had anything, no experiences with anything like that. Back around 2009, I believe it was, I had one of those old flip phones, and I took a picture off my back porch, and it had, I wished I still had it to send you, man. It was crazy. It looked like I'd built a giant bonfire during the daytime almost, something like that. It was a giant fireball coming out of my backyard towards that creek area, and it was at least 9 feet tall. it was looked like a giant fireball. It started out more yellow, and then it got orange, and I never did see it. That's what I was telling my brother. He saw it. Several people saw it. I showed it to a bunch of guys, and I said, "Man, that wasn't there when I took the picture." You know what I mean? And so I don't know what is going on. There's something is going on there, and I haven't, since that day this all happened, I haven't been back to stay there since at nighttime. I won't go back. I mean, I'm even scared to mow my backyard right next to that tree line. My grass is a foot tall right now over there. I mean, I own the place, and I won't go back till, I don't know, I've been talking about selling it, you know. It's that, what happened to me is so traumatic. I've lived there since 1999, and I love my place. But I'm scared, man. I'm scared to go back, to be honest with you, and I will not stay there at night.
So you know, since 1999, this is the only thing that's happened there, or any other kind of paranormal type thing, or?
No, not that I've ever recognized, other than, you know, the house being slapped on, and I've had a little bit of like paranormal stuff happen in there, you know, but more like ghost type activity, you know, and I don't know how in the world, because that place, I moved it there. It's a double wide, and I bought it brand new in 1999. And it's not like it's an old house or anything, but that ground out there is old Indian ground. I do know I found tons of arrowheads up there, and I told my brother, I said, well, maybe when they scrape this foundation, they disturb something. I don't have any idea, man. I mean, I'm clueless on this. It's, you know what I mean? Something's going on.
How big were the pyramid-shaped things? Like how large?
Man, they wasn't any bigger. They weren't that big. That's what I've told everybody. They were maybe 12 feet by 12 feet, you know, from point to point on the pyramid. They wasn't any bigger than that, maybe 10 foot high. They weren't big, or they might have been a little bigger than that. It's hard for me to say, really, but right. Whatever this thing was, it was zapping me, man, and it would hit me right between my eyeballs, and that's where I felt like it was hitting me. And when it hit me, my eyes would, well, this is really hard to describe, but I would see waves, black waves, going through my eyes. And when it hit me, it'd drop you to your knees immediately. It dropped me, and I could feel my heart going down. I thought I was dead for sure. I thought this thing's killing me, man. It's going to abduct me or something, and I would see these black waves, and then it dropped me to my knees, and my heart would go way down. I mean, it just felt like I was being put to sleep, like at the dentist office, but I'd never go to sleep.
With the small creatures, now you're saying that the big ones kind of look more like apes.
They look like, yeah, but with a no, they're a lot taller, and their nose was just like more like a regular nose, really. They didn't have an ape nose, and the one I saw clearly was solid black, and it had solid black face. It wasn't gray or anything. It was solid black, and that's just the one I've seen them out there. I could see them in the shadows, but you can't really see them good. You know what I mean? But when he stuck his whole head out, his head was bigger than a 5-gallon bucket, and it was huge. And he shook it side to side from left to right, and then he held it up kind of to the side, and I could see his cheek, and it was shining, glistening with the sun, and it was solid black. And his nose looked like just kind of like a normal nose, but it was maybe wider, you know. It looked didn't look like an ape's nose, I'll just say that. It looked more like a human nose. I couldn't see the eyes, but I've got some pictures I'll send you, and one of them in particular is these eyes, and they look evil to me. I just don't think these things. I think there may be some of them that aren't bad, but I think some of them. I don't know shit. I'll be honest with you. I don't know anything, man.
Yeah.
All I know is what I saw, and
no one knows, man. I mean, you know, no one's got a specimen or anything like that, and I believe your story. I'm just trying to figure it out. Trying to put it together. Now, the little ones, was there anything about their eyes? Was there any glowing eye type stuff, or was there any, stuff like that?
I really, other than, it was, like I said, it was around 8 or 8:15, something like that night, and it wasn't even quite dark yet. It was getting dark, and the eyes, from what I saw, they looked brown. I couldn't tell. I didn't see any glowing. Now, on these other creatures, I've seen glowing eyes when they're even in darkness. They're glowing. These I couldn't tell. And
so you associate the little ones more with the pyramid things, right?
Yeah, yep, I do. I think they're. I don't. For some reason, I don't believe they're the same thing as the Bigfoot. Don't ask me why. They look like them. They got hair all over them, but there's something different about them, and it's not a good different either. It was a very scary something. When I saw that Bigfoot stick his head out, believe this or not, I was more amazed. I wasn't even really scared. I was more amazed. I got like an adrenaline dump off of it. I could feel my hair standing up on my, on my arms. It almost felt good. These things are different. When I saw them, I was scared for some reason. And I don't know why, but there's something different about them.
The pyramid crafts, you said it looked like a pyramid shape, but it was covered in looked like
blue. Okay, all right, like blue jewels almost is what I saw. I know it sounds crazy, but it looked like blue jewels that were lit up. That's what it looked like, and there were a few red ones in there too. And
I mean, when you're describing it, you need to describe it exactly what you saw. Whether it sounds crazy or not, it's best to just tell exactly what you saw. That way, there might be other people out there that have experienced the same thing, and they'll be glad you said it, because that's exactly what I saw. I mean, most of the time that someone shares something, there'll be someone else contact me and say, "Man, that's exactly what I saw," kind of thing. These pyramid type structures.
Have you ever heard of anything like this, though? I mean,
yeah, I've heard of the pyramid type structures before. One time there was some similar type stuff with even hieroglyphics and stuff like that was in some photos and stuff this guy sent me, but I didn't really know what to make of it. But I mean, I've even seen a few images of these pyramid type things, but they were bigger usually. But who knows? I mean, who knows who hasn't come forward, or So, I mean, I believe you. I don't think you're trying to lie about it.
I'll send you some pictures I've got. I retrieved them. I deleted all these things, and I ended up getting on there and retrieving. And if I can, I'll retrieve that video. I'll try. And that's the one that's got looks like the juvenile that I've seen out there. And he sticks it when I'm walking. I'm walking through the creek, and then I step up on this ledge, and I stop, and I'm talking to him, and his head is sticking in between two trees. And then 10 seconds or so later, I take a step forward, and he pulls his head through the trees, and then he sticks it back out and then pulls it through again. It happens pretty quick, but I've got a video of that if I can retrieve it, you know. But I've still got some pictures I can send you of actual.
Yeah,
one of them.
Anything you can send would be great. It sounds like it was very traumatic to you, and.
Yeah, it was. It was really traumatic. I couldn't even. I mean, right after it happened, I couldn't tell it without crying. I mean, I talked to. Well, I can't drop any names on it. Are you still recording? I guess.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll.
Yeah, I know
I'll
you mentioned a few names, and there was a few people that were well known that said they might come out and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
you know, we'll see what they do, but.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you about it, but I mean, it's a very traumatic experience, and oh man, I don't.
Dude, listen, man. I've had people that watch my channel. They know I myself have had very bizarre experiences. Some stuff people have never heard about, you know, like the Darrow stuff, and you know. So
what
you know that you can't you know try to you know in any kind of way try to tell me that I don't know what you're talking about, because I do. You know, it's really hard to tell people about stuff that you think that they may never believe, because it's just so bizarre. It's hard to even tell anyone, and that's part of the drama of it.
I didn't want to say, you know, I didn't want to tell it, but when I was in the hospital, I had, you know, I had to tell them, because they, and
do you have records of the hospital?
Yeah, they did blood work and all that, and I mean, I wasn't even drinking that night, you know, I didn't have any drugs, none whatsoever. That's what shocked them more than anything. They thought I was on drugs, you know, and,
do you have evidence that you could provide if it was blacked out somewhat about you going to the hospital that night?
Well, I don't have it. I could get it. I mean, I didn't bring it home with me, you know.
Just to shut the naysayers up, I can black out any information. Just as if it had the date up there, and then you know you can even black out the hospital. I mean, or whatever.
Yeah.
Just to say someone went to the hospital. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I went to the hospital, and they, that's what shocked them more than anything, that I wasn't on any drugs. You know, they thought, well, this guy's on, you know, he's on meth or something, you know. Seriously, that's what they thought.
And LSD and all kinds of stuff.
Right, whatever. And that's what blew their mind. And then before they released me, they sent the shrink in, and I talked to him, and before he left, I had him telling me a UFO story. I mean, he believed me, man. And that's what's, you know what I mean? And, he was telling me a UFO when he saw one down in Nashville, him and a friend. He said it was huge. He said it was bigger than the football field and all this. Well,
yeah, I mean, a lot of times you'll run across people who, you think might not believe you, and then you'll open up to them, and then they'll tell you something that's happened to them, and you'll be quite surprised, man. I think that a good portion of people that we run into each day have had something happen. Well, it might not be that extravagant, and you know, it may not be that fascinating kind of a thing, but typically most people have had some kind of weird something happen in their lifetime.
Oh yeah, I agree. And but I mean, the thing is, I just hope that the little ones are gone from there. You know, I said 1,000 Hail Marys that night. I prayed like I've never prayed before, and the other ones, I never had any trouble out of the big ones. I mean, not like I've been seeing them very long, but those few days that I was seeing them, I just started seeing the little ones there. And I didn't feel a good presence from them. I felt like they were evil, and something to them. There's something to this whole thing, this whole Bigfoot thing. I think maybe that is more, to it. I don't have a clue.
I agree, man. I think that there's more to it because the abilities and stuff, like with the infrasound, even with the big ones, and the ability to stay hidden, and there's just too much bizarreness to the whole thing, and a lot of people think, well, you're saying they're supernatural. I'm not saying that they're supernatural, but they could have abilities that appear to be supernatural. Because even because I think like the larger ones might be Nephilim, but Nephilim were physical creatures in the scriptures, but people worshipped them too. In the Bible, the Anakim and stuff like that, they were known to be worshipped in certain areas of the Middle East, and I'm not even saying those were hairy. I'm not, because I don't believe all of the Nephilim were hairy. But I think that there might have been some hairy ones that were after Cain was marked with a mark that would cause fear to come upon people, because he knew his wife again after he was ostracized, and supposedly the sons of God came unto the daughters of Cain, so he could have daughters before and after he was marked, and I think the mark that he may have gotten was this beast-like look of this hairy type creature. And one of the reasons it makes me think that is because like in the book of Jasher, he ended up getting shot by Tubal-Cain and his grandson, because they saw him from afar off and thought he was a wild animal. And why would you think someone was a wild animal? I've never mistaken somebody in the woods for a wild animal unless they had a big fur coat on or something. You know what I'm saying? It looked like an animal. So, it's just suspicious to me. So that's kind of been a theory that I've been, kind of knocking around a little bit to make some sense out of it. And I could be wrong. People shouldn't get upset. We got to make sense out of what we see and what we know.
Well, see, what I was wondering if they are Nephilim.
And that doesn't mean they're supernatural. Even angels have bodies.
Right.
And I went through a couple teachings like that, where Apostle Paul talked about bodies that different beings have, and he talked about there's flesh. Flesh means you have physical skin and meat, muscle and stuff like that. He said there's each has their flesh, and he said that a fish and he talked about wild beasts have flesh, and he even said that terrestrial beings that live on the earth like us, we have flesh, and angels, celestial beings have flesh. He said, but the glory is different. And when you compare that to when Jesus was risen from the dead, the Bible says that he basically went through doors that were locked. He was able to go through walls, but then he was able to go right up to Thomas, and he said, thrust your hand in my side and see if I'm not flesh and bone. So that proves to you right there, even a resurrected person that has resurrected even higher than the angels at that point, because after we're resurrected, we're made a little lower than the angels right now, but after we're resurrected, we'll be higher than the angels, and in the glory that we have. So when Jesus was resurrected, he was the firstborn of many brethren, and he's higher than the angels at this point. But he was able to walk up to Thomas and say, thrust your hand in my side and see if I'm not flesh and bone. He didn't say flesh and blood. He said flesh and bone. I don't know if there's a significance to that, or it doesn't mean nothing, or whatever. I don't know. For sure, maybe he does have still, blood, but But it tells you he had a solid body. And one of the reasons I knew that, and I kept searching that out, trying to find answers, is because I had a encounter with an entity when I was 5 years old. And my sister walked in on it. She was 6 years old. She was only a year older, and we both still remember it 100% today. But this thing was it came through the wall and grabbed a hold of me and was picking me up on my tiptoes and was pulling me towards the wall. And I didn't know anything to do except to try to yell, and I couldn't yell. It had me like paralyzed. And I was trying to yell, but nothing would come out. So I went to try to bite it. And when I went to try to bite it, I seen something move, and I looked over, and it was my sister standing at the end of the hallway looking. And her mouth was like dropped open, like looking at it and saying, you could see on her face, it's like, I'm seeing something that I'm not believing, kind of thing. But I noticed it was able to come through the wall, but solid enough to grab a hold of me. And I looked at this fingernails, man, because it had me by the left arm. He had me with its right arm. He had me on my left wrist. And when I was trying to do it, kind of like doing a pull up, and I was going to bite it, as I went to try to bite the hand, I was looking at his fingers, and I was looking at the fingernails, and I was looking at the cuticles. That hand was solid. It was grabbing a hold of me and actually moving me. So, as a kid, I didn't quite think about everything, but I knew that it had real fingernails. It had real cuticles. I was looking at the cuticles. I looked at the details, the wrinkles in his fingers, like we have, around our knuckles and stuff like that. And the whole being was like if you put your hand over a flashlight in the dark and it makes your hand glow, kind of an orangish red. The whole entity was like that. And this thing had curled ram horns on its head, had a goatee. Yep. I mean, it was...
it was a demon.
I mean, it was a fallen angel of some sort, because demons are the only ones that do not have bodies. They can't just grab you. A demon,
okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Because they're disembodied.
Yeah, right. I got you. See, I'm not.
A fallen angel hasn't been disembodied yet. So this thing was some type of fallen angel. And just because it looks bizarre to us, I mean, doesn't mean that we can just say you're a demon. If they grab a hold of you, then they're not a demon, because a demon can't grab a hold. They can inhabit your body, but
I don't know all about that stuff like you do, but I understand what you're saying, because in that what I was telling you earlier is, about in the woods, me seeing them. I have actually seen what looked to be horns on some individuals out there. It looked like horns to me.
I've had reports of that. I've had reports of the dog man having horns.
Well, I found these footprints, and they weren't even in the same. They weren't even where I'm telling you right now where I saw these, but they were within 15 miles. I found these giant footprints, and they were they looked like dog prints, except they were more oblong, like more of a football shape, basically, and they were bigger than a horse track. And I found them, and whatever it was on two legs. There wasn't four of them. I mean, it was two legs, and the stripe was huge, and it had, at first, I mean, around here, we really don't hear mountain lions, people, they say, well, they've seen them, and there may be some here. I'm not going to say there's not, but I've never seen any, and this was on two legs, whatever it was, and these prints were way bigger. I mean, way bigger. Like I said, they were bigger than a horse track. And what was weird to me about them was they weren't just perfectly round. They were like an oblong. And the cat, they don't leave toenails. This had toenails in it. So whatever it was some kind of dog,
Yeah,
creature.
I mean, when people report the dog man activity, a lot of times they'll describe exactly what you're describing. It's almost a combination between a foot and a dog paw, but elongated. Well, and some people even try to say, well, they set down on the hocks, and that's what makes it oblong, longer. I don't know if
Right.
I believe that. I think that there's kind of a combination of a dog paw and a foot, and the hock is still up in the air. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't know. I think I've got a picture of one though. I'll send you. It's this particular one looks like a kind of like a baboon in the face. It's got
really? Wow.
Yeah, it looks like a baboon face almost, but it's got a real pronounced brow on it. Real thick brow ridge, more so than what I've seen in these others.
Well, when you get all those put together and send them to me, we'll do a second video, man, and I'll get back in contact with you, and we'll go through that, and then we'll make sure people watch the first video, and then but we'll do like a part 2 if you get them sent to me, then and at that point I'll call you back and we'll talk about it some, and we'll do like the picture version of what's going on. That'll help bring credibility too. And if you could get your doctor's records, we can black out anything that would identify where and and that kind of stuff and who.
Right.
I've got technology. Even if you give me footage of you, I can blur your face and track you as you're moving in a moving picture. I can do all kinds of different stuff, No one will identify you, I promise you.
Okay, that sounds good to me, man.
So how are you doing now?
Well, I'm feeling better now. The past week or so, I started feeling better. I had a really rough time there, and some nights are still difficult. I grew up hunting and fishing in the woods, I won't go in the woods now. I get scared a little bit at night. Where I'm staying is it's about 15 miles from where I live, and for now, I don't know what I'm going to do about the house.
So you're still not staying down there in that house?
No, I won't stay down there. No. No.
Okay. Well, I think that you eventually could. I wouldn't say that you should now, but I do think that the evil nature, even if it is a physical creature only, but the flying pyramids and stuff like that, that's not just a normal thing. So there's a spiritual aspect to that. But even if it was the Bigfoot you were scared of, if God can shut the mouths of lions in the lion den and like Daniel, then even a physical creature he can protect you from. So we don't want you to live in fear forever. And I'm not saying get over it today. I'm not saying that you need to do it tomorrow. I'm saying, but we can work toward you not having fear and trusting that the Lord would protect you, and I believe He will. The weird pyramid flying stuff and the little things that were all evil feeling and what have you, and shooting you with laser beams and stuff. We can make that stop pretty quick, and you have to just trust that part when it comes to the Lord, and trust that the person you're talking to here that's interviewing you knows something about this, because I've had my own fears, and I will not fear. The fearful shall not inherit the kingdom. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to let something. Not saying I'd never get scared, because this last Bigfoot encounter I had when they grabbed a hold of me and stuff, it scared me. And I was wanting to get the heck out of there. I was waiting for daylight, you know what I mean? He was like, when we get daylight, I'm out of here, boy. You believe that? Gather. I didn't even gather nothing up. It was like, take me to the dock, man. I'm out of here. You get my stuff and bring it back. And, so, but you don't have to live in fear. But that could be a process, though. So I'm not delusional and saying, "Oh, get over it right this second." That's silly, because people can't. You have to build trust to get over something like that, and so I would be willing to help you get past it and regain your property. These things can't steal your property from you, dude. You've got dominion, not them.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man, because it's been a really rough couple months here, and I've just had a really rough time. But I know what you're saying, and I believe in God, and I do, and with every fiber of my being, and I pray every day. I mean, I'm a firm believer.
And that's why I'm saying you don't have to do it today or tomorrow, because it's a process. Anyone that doesn't get that and they think you should be able to get over it in like a minute, they've never been through it. It takes a minute it's a process to regain, because I think that sometimes the Lord wants to have you build trust in Him, and sometimes it's a process, and He knows that. Because if you've been through something like that, you're not just going to say, okay, I'm going to say a prayer with somebody and I'm going to run right back out there and sleep. No, you're not.
No.
That's ridiculous, and no one would do it. I wouldn't do it. I don't know if I want to go back to camping at the place I was camping when the thing grabbed a hold of me.
Right.
I mean, I'll have to think about that a little bit and do a little bit more. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't expect you to do something that I wouldn't necessarily do. Well, I can tell you're not making it up, because there's too many weird things that you put in there to be making it up, man. A pyramid with these blue things and these red things, and lights with 3 on the bottom and 2 on the top. And, I mean, that's just too many details just to make it up. And you know what I'm saying? Because you got to think about what the naysayers might say, and that to me is just too detailed. There's too many specific things that are in there, and what the little ones look like, and what what I'm saying. It's like, nah, this dude's not making none of this up, man.
No, man. I wished I was, but I feel like I brought it on myself. With trying to befriend them and all, and doing wood knocks in my backyard, and
you know what that might implicate is that communicating. See, there's going to be some people that say, "Oh, these things are a flesh and blood creature," and I've never said they're not flesh and blood. Or flesh and bone or whatever, they're solid creatures that are out there hunting and eating. Even angels eat. Yeah, I mean, you think about it. When angels came to this world in the Old Testament, they ate with people, and we were able to eat their food. Manna that was given to the children of Israel out in the wilderness was food from heaven. So we can eat their food, they can eat our food, and so we're not that much different. That's a very bad misconception that you can't hardly even get past when you're talking to people about this kind of thing. So here you are, you have these communications with these creatures, and there's things like in Deuteronomy 18:10, I think starting around 18:10, that says that you're forbidden to communicate with those ones that are basically made a little higher than us, right? And if you do, there can be things that happen. You open that door, and it to me, what you're saying is some type of evidence, unless it's a trickery of some type, that you have communicated with something a little higher than human, which would make them at least a hybrid. The Nephilim, if they were a hybrid between angel and regular man, like if they were, the sons of God came unto the daughters of men, then they would be somewhat a hybrid between the angelic and the human. So they would be a little higher in between the angelic and the human, you know what I'm saying? So they'd be higher than the human, but a little lower than the angel. So if you were communicating with these Nephilim creatures, and even if they were only on the same level as human, if they're basically parents, you would say, are angelic, then you could be opening a door to something. So I think if you look at scripture alone, that it's almost evidence that you have opened a door through communicating with something spiritual.
Right. I was just hoping it was a good door, you know what I mean? Because, you know, that's what I'm scared of more than anything is that, you know, if I've opened up something, you know, and I mean, like I said, I'm a firm believer in God and Jesus Christ and all, and I wasn't trying, you know, I was just out.
Well, you'd be better off if you opened up something with something spiritual, because you can close that. But if it's not spiritual, then it's just an animal. And then you would have to be dependent on something closer to like Daniel in the lion's den for God to shut the mouth of real lions that are completely natural, you know what I'm saying? That would be a faith thing at that point. And he could do either one, but it would be better to trust in that he would shut the mouth of these things that are not physical. You know what I mean? Completely. The glory higher, or whatever kind of thing.
Right.
And I try to explain this stuff the best I can, man, because I get it, because I kind of understand the different nature of the different flesh, you know. But it's hard to comprehend when someone's listening and I'm talking about this stuff and them get where I'm going with it, and but I think you get that.
Oh no, I'm hearing you loud and clear on it. Everything you said makes sense. I mean, it's just it's hard to swallow, really. You know, especially beings that. Not even a year ago, when I was finding all these tree structures and all kinds, I found look what appeared to be nests, big giant ones, and finding all this stuff, and I was trying to say, well, no, there's no way, you know what I mean, and then lo and behold, I didn't have to go any further in my backyard. You know, I was going everywhere else, and it appeared they were right in my backyard. You know, and you know, I don't know. I would say, yeah, maybe I did call them in or whatever, but that doesn't equate to the footprints I found before I ever even started looking for them. You know what I mean? I found the footprints back in 2012. I wasn't even interested in Bigfoot then, you know, and so, you know.
Yeah, and listen, you know, Israel and stuff ran into them when they weren't looking for them. You know what I'm saying? On the Nephilim aspect, so they're completely, creatures that live on this planet. And they hunt and they eat and they have to do whatever to eat and survive. So you running into them was nothing. It wasn't no big deal. It was when you called out to them and started communicating, then you opened the door. If you were to look at the spiritual nature of the whole scenario.
Well, I mean, I've really never heard of them, man. Until just here recently, after what happened to me, I talked to a guy, and he told me about an Indian man that had told him about the same exact what I told him about the small ones. And so, you know, I don't know what to make of them. Like I said, they don't look like they're definitely not babies. The ones I saw, they look like. They appear to be full-grown individuals, and other than the one that was translucent looking. I don't know what that was, but the other ones with the hair on them, the one had, his hair wasn't that long. It may have been 2 inches off the top of his head, not even that long, 1.5 inches maybe. And then he had a black blonde, but it was like a light brown. It looked like a mohawk going right through the middle of his head. And I said he's about 3.5 foot tall. And the other one had real long hair, and it looked like it was more scary looking, actually. It was
like Cousin It on.
Yep, exactly. A lot like.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cousin It. Yeah, it kind of looked like that, but you could see the eyes, but I couldn't make out really. They weren't glowing or anything from what I saw.
Right. Yeah.
And but I was so scared at the time. I didn't take too much time to just like observe everything about all. You know what I mean? I was so scared, and I ran in and grabbed that .45 pistol, and I went out there and I just shot. I wasn't trying to shoot one of them. I just shot, out there, kind of in their direction, and obviously that wasn't the right thing to do. Yeah.
You can kill the regular Bigfoot. I know that. I'm not sure about the other ones, but
I don't
Bigfoot. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyway, look up your, try to find your pictures and stuff and send them to me. And this is about an hour and a half long, something like that. And we'll do a part 2 and show some of the pictures, and we'll talk about it as we, look at the pictures.
Yeah.
Is that cool?
Yeah. I have no problem. I'll send you the pics.
All right, man. Well, Matt, I appreciate you sharing, and everybody out there in YouTube land, I thank you for listening. And like I said before, if anyone wants to share something, they can go to brentonsawin@gmail.com and send me some kind of communication, what your story is, and a way to contact you. And if you want to contribute, go to a link in the description, PayPal me. And then also, we'll try to put a link in the description for Patreon, where you can do it once a month, and that'd be very helpful. Until the next time, God bless you, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.